Well, it's a long time ago now, Tom. I'm trying to rack my brain about it all. But we met at university at St Andrews, and we were friends for over a year first.
In a heart-wrenching turn no one expected, Prince William broke down in tears during a private engagement, finally revealing new, devastating details about Princess Catherine's secret battle. What he shared left the room in stunned silence. For the first time, William opened up about moments behind palace walls, moments too painful to hide. Why now? What does it mean for the future of the crown? This isn't just another royal update. It's deeply personal. The moment that changed everything. No one expected what was about to unfold. On a bright April day, during the grandeur of Trooping the Colour 2025, all eyes were on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. But instead of celebration, there was silence. As the fly-past roared overhead, King Charles III stepped forward. Not with a salute, but with a solemn expression. "This is a moment of truth," he began, and just like that, everything changed. In a voice that trembled with both authority and sorrow, Charles revealed what had been hidden from public view. Catherine, Princess of Wales, had been battling a serious illness since the start of the year. The words "private struggle" and "devastating diagnosis" rang across newsrooms and living rooms alike. William, standing beside his father, appeared visibly shaken. His voice cracked as he said, "This is very hard for us." For the first time in decades, the spotlight shifted, not on royal duty, but on human pain. The crowd at the mall, once cheering and waving flags, stood still. Around the world, the response was immediate. Television channels broke programming, social media flooded with prayers, and polls that same weekend showed a 20% surge in public sympathy for the royal family. This wasn't just a royal crisis, it was a national moment of heartbreak. One royal commentator put it simply, "In that speech, Charles stopped being a monarch and started being a grandfather." That day didn't just alter the public calendar, it changed how the world saw the Windsors, vulnerable, united, and deeply, painfully real. We stand with her as a family first. King Charles III, April 2025. Following Charles's powerful speech, the mystery surrounding Catherine's absence unraveled. What had been whispers and speculation became clear, and for the first time, the public understood the true weight the Prince and Princess of Wales had been carrying. But even more striking than the diagnosis was what followed next. Catherine's own courage. As headlines around the globe dissected every word of the King's address, the world prepared for something even more personal. A mother's voice, speaking from the heart. Catherine's private diagnosis and public courage. It began quietly. In early January 2025, the palace released a short statement. Catherine had undergone abdominal surgery. No further details. Then came the silence. But behind closed doors, doctors had found something else, a growth that required further testing. By February, the princess received the diagnosis: cancer. A new battle began. She faced it with the same grace the world had always admired. But now, there was fear behind those familiar eyes. King Charles revealed in his speech that Catherine had completed a cycle of chemotherapy by late February. Friends say she insisted on shielding her children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, from the worst. Behind palace walls, she recorded bedtime stories and wrote personal notes, fearing what might come. But in March, she made a brave choice. She would speak directly to the public. That speech aired in spring 2025. No palace setting, just Catherine, sitting in a simple chair in a garden, speaking softly and honestly. "I needed time," she said. "Time to explain this to my children, and time to heal." Her eyes welled, but her voice remained steady. Viewers across the UK wept with her. Support poured in. Millions of views, hundreds of thousands of messages, and a clear message. She wasn't facing this alone. By September 2025, doctors confirmed a hopeful milestone: remission. That same month, the family released a video from Norfolk, showing Catherine smiling with her children under an apple tree. In November, she made an emotional visit to the Royal Marsden Hospital, a cancer center she supported for years. When William kissed her forehead in front of patients and staff, it wasn't protocol, it was love. I wanted to be honest, for the sake of every child who sees their mother hurt. Catherine, Princess of Wales, March 2025. Even as Catherine re-entered public life with cautious grace, all eyes turned to the man by her side. Prince William had been the silent protector throughout. He kept their children's world steady while shielding Catherine from a media storm. But now, the emotional weight was beginning to show. For a man who had lost his mother in the public eye, this latest chapter struck deep. As Catherine's light began to return, the cracks in William's armor began to show. William's silent strength. After Charles's April speech, Prince William took a quiet step back from the limelight. While Catherine became the face of hope, he was the wall behind her, resolute, yet struggling. Aides reported seeing him tense during briefings, pausing for long moments before speaking. One insider said, he wasn't cold, he was protecting something fragile. Himself, her. It was the same protective instinct once seen in his father during Diana's hardest days. When Catherine appeared at Trooping the Color in June 2025, it was William's hand that steadied her. Cameras caught fleeting glances between them, short, soft nods that spoke volumes. His expression remained serious, yet calm. He stood close, but didn't overstep. Every move seemed carefully measured. This wasn't about putting on a show. It was about holding her up when the world was watching. Psychologists and royal commentators drew a powerful comparison. Diana's death had left William deeply scarred. And now, with Catherine's illness, those memories came flooding back. One headline read, "History echoes in William's eyes." Yet this time, the outcome was different. Catherine was healing, and William wasn't a lost boy anymore. He was a man standing for his family. In an emotional interview in March 2025, recorded earlier but released later, William said, "Catherine is my greatest support, always has been." That interview, played again in the wake of her remission, painted the full picture. Through grief, stress, and sleepless nights, their love deepened, and the public noticed. At charity events, in off-camera moments, William reached for her hand, not as a prince, but as a husband who nearly lost everything. "She is my greatest support, always has been." Prince William, March 2025. With Catherine's recovery and William's quiet resilience, the monarchy faced a question it hadn't asked in decades. What does true leadership look like? King Charles, witnessing the strength of his heir and daughter-in-law, saw an opportunity, not just to heal his family, but to reshape the crown. And what he proposed next would surprise even the most loyal royal watchers. In a rare show of emotional clarity, Charles began reframing the future, with Catherine as the symbol of its heart. A royal family reframed. When King Charles returned to public speaking in late July 2025, it wasn't to talk about ceremonies or tradition, it was to talk about change. Standing before the press at St. James's Palace, he delivered a calm but visionary address. His message? The monarchy needed to be smaller, smarter, and above all, more human. And the figure at the center of this new vision? Not himself, not even William. It was Catherine. He praised her work with early childhood development, her quiet leadership during crisis, and her unwavering grace in the face of fear. "She reminds us," he said, "that royalty must feel before it can lead." The moment was a clear turning point. In Catherine, Charles saw a bridge, not just to a younger Britain, but to a monarchy rooted in empathy, not pageantry. For a man once criticized for emotional distance, this speech surprised even his staunchest critics. Importantly, Charles framed this shift as a partnership. He spoke of William and Catherine as co-creators of the future. They understand the world their children will inherit, he said, and they act with that knowledge every day. It was a direct contrast to the solo reigns of the past. Behind the scenes, palace aides confirmed what many suspected. Catherine was now involved in long-term strategy meetings, especially regarding youth outreach. One royal historian summed it up best. This isn't just about trimming down the monarchy, it's about warming it up. By autumn 2025, public surveys showed a 30% rise in approval for the royal family's direction. For the first time in years, the crown didn't feel remote. It felt relatable. She reminds us that royalty must feel before it can lead. King Charles III, July 2025. But Charles wasn't the only one drawing attention to Catherine's powerful role. The public saw it too, and they remembered someone else who once stood for empathy above all else. As the Princess of Wales walked forward in strength, echoes of another beloved royal rang louder than ever: Diana. The comparisons weren't just visual, they were emotional. And for William, who had walked through fire once already, that connection brought a new, deeply personal meaning to his wife's journey. Echoes of Diana's empathy. The world had always compared Catherine and Diana, but never like this. In the wake of Catherine's illness and recovery, the parallels became striking. Both women were mothers who prioritized their children's emotional health. Both had used their royal roles to speak openly about pain and healing, and both had the rare ability to make the most formal spaces feel intimate. In August 2025, during a televised event on World Mental Health Day, William stood before a small crowd in Birmingham. He was meant to deliver a routine speech. Instead, he choked up. "When my mother spoke out about suffering, people listened. Now I see that same courage in Catherine." The room fell silent. The pain was real, but so was the pride. Programs like Heads Together, launched in 2016, were now growing under Catherine's influence. She expanded the initiative to focus more on children's trauma, especially those affected by medical crises. One newly funded center in Leeds now bears her name. Supporters say it was Catherine who insisted the programs offer grief counseling for kids, something Diana had once advocated but never lived to implement. These shared values, mental health, family, purpose, became the new royal language. And through it all, the emotional core was William. Insiders revealed that he often referenced his mother in private discussions with his team, using her legacy as a moral compass. And now, as Catherine walked a similar path, it seemed Diana's spirit lived on, not just in memory, but in action. Now I see that same courage in Catherine. Prince William, August 2025. As the emotional resonance of Catherine's journey deepened, so too did her connection with the public. No longer just admired, she was believed in, and the numbers proved it. Her return to work wasn't met with scrutiny, but celebration. Across TV, radio, and online, her presence inspired a wave of compassion and conversation. Something had shifted. Catherine was no longer just a royal figure. She had become a symbol. And soon, the whole country would show her exactly what that meant. The Kate Effect on royal public opinion. By June 2025, the numbers were impossible to ignore. A YouGov poll reported that 73% of the British public now viewed Catherine favorably, her highest approval rating ever. What drove it wasn't fashion or tradition, it was vulnerability. Her public honesty about cancer, her protective motherhood, and her soft return to duties struck a national chord. The phrase Kate Effect returned to headlines, but this time, it wasn't about style, it was about strength. Daytime shows replayed her garden speech from March. News anchors shared clips of her hugging young patients during her November visit to the Royal Marsden Hospital. One viral post called her the real face of modern courage. Across Instagram and TikTok, tributes flowed, montages set to soft music, children's drawings mailed to Kensington Palace, and families sharing how Catherine inspired them to keep going through their own battles. Grassroots energy followed. Charities saw a spike in donations linked to her causes. A children's cancer fund in Manchester reported a 40% increase in contributions after her visit. A mother in Sheffield wrote a letter to the palace. "When you cried, I cried. And when you stood up again, I did too." Thousands more echoed her sentiment. Catherine, once admired at a distance, had become someone people could truly relate to. Her appearance at Trooping the Colour in April, and later at a children's mental health event in June, marked her comeback, not in pomp, but in quiet power. She didn't demand attention, she earned it. With every smile, every small step, she reminded the nation of something vital, that healing is not weakness. It's the strongest thing of all. When you cried, I cried. And when you stood up again, I did too. Letter to Kensington Palace, June 2025. Catherine had captured the heart of the nation, but her journey wasn't just one of personal triumph. It was a blueprint, a symbol of how the monarchy itself could rise above formality and connect through feeling. As the year rolled forward, the milestones kept coming. But so did the deeper signals, gestures, quiet moments, shared glances that showed the Wales family wasn't just surviving, they were rebuilding. And in the halls of Buckingham Palace, new plans were already taking shape for what would come next. Key milestones and cameos. The year was marked not just by speeches and headlines, but by moments. The kind that didn't need explanations, just images that stayed with people. On April 13, 2025, during Trooping the Colour, Catherine stood beside William on the Buckingham Palace balcony. She was pale, but smiling, holding Princess Charlotte's hand. The sun caught her RAF blue coat, and for a split second, the crowd erupted, not in awe, but in love. Then came June, when Catherine quietly returned to work. Her first appearance? A children's mental health event in Essex, where she sat cross-legged with a group of school children, listening, not speaking. One child asked, "Are you still sick?" She smiled and replied, "I'm getting better every day." The quote spread across national outlets, symbolizing the raw honesty that had come to define her public presence. In September, a family video released from Anmer Hall confirmed what millions had hoped to hear: remission. The footage showed Catherine walking through the orchard, William throwing a rugby ball with George, and Charlotte giggling as Prince Louis chased a dog. The music was soft, the tone hopeful. It was royal, yes, but it felt real. And in November, during her visit to the Royal Marsden Hospital, William kissed her forehead in front of patients. The gesture was subtle, but it echoed around the world. By December 2025, Catherine was back inside Buckingham Palace, reviewing early childhood project designs in her thumbnail planner with aides. She didn't need a grand event to signal her return. Her very presence was the signal. I'm getting better every day. Catherine, June 2025. These scenes weren't just comforting, they were clarifying. The milestones of 2025 didn't simply represent a recovery, they revealed a reset. A royal family, not just willing to modernize, but forced to evolve. As Catherine's strength grew, so did her influence. And behind the palace walls, it became clear the monarchy's future wasn't being built with pageantry, it was being shaped by purpose. The next phase? A new vision, driven not by duty alone, but by healing and hope. Path to a new monarchy. By early December, King Charles unveiled a bold initiative, a national youth mental health program launching in 2026. Rooted in Catherine's early work and personal story. What she has endured and overcome, Charles said, has deepened her understanding, and that understanding must now guide our work. For the first time, royal projects were no longer top-down, they were deeply personal. The plan included a Commonwealth-wide rollout of early childhood development centers by 2027, many modeled after the Princess's Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood. Catherine wasn't just a figurehead, she was helping shape the framework. And William? He wasn't behind her, he was beside her. At each proposal review, each strategic meeting, he offered input, not as a prince, but as a father, husband, and son. Then came the quiet presence of Princess Anne, a steady force through turbulent times. Insiders confirmed Anne had become one of Catherine's closest confidants. She listens without fuss, one aide said, and she trusts Catherine to lead, not just to represent. It was a rare alliance, two women from different generations, bound by grit, privacy, and duty. Within palace circles, one thing became clear. Catherine's counsel was no longer optional. It was essential. Her lived experience now shaped how the monarchy presented itself to the world. She had entered 2025 as a consort in waiting. She would leave it as the soul of a reimagined crown. What she has endured must now guide our work. King Charles III, December 2025. But while Catherine's role was now central, it was William's voice that brought everything full circle. A man shaped by loss, now holding firm through love. The royal family had shifted, but it was William's open heart and his devotion to the woman he called his anchor that showed Britain something even more powerful than leadership, partnership. And on their anniversary live stream, the future king laid it all bare for the world to hear. William speaks from the heart. In November 2025, during a surprise live stream celebrating 14 years of marriage, William opened up in a way the public had rarely seen. Sitting beside Catherine in a warm-toned Kensington Palace room, he wasn't the Prince of Wales. He was just a husband. "Kate is my anchor," he said, "my greatest encouragement." The words weren't rehearsed. They were lived. He spoke of school runs and bedtime stories, of play dates in the garden and whispered hospital prayers. "She never wanted the spotlight," he said, "but she has rewritten it through grace, through pain, and through how she lifts others even when she's still healing." Catherine said little during the stream. She smiled, she placed her hand on his, and that was enough. William also touched on the responsibility they now carried. "We know who we are. We're parents. We're public servants. And now, more than ever, we serve each other so we can serve this nation better." It was perhaps the clearest statement yet about the future of the monarchy. Not one built on distance, but on shared humanity. The live stream ended with a simple image, William looking at Catherine and whispering off camera, "We're still here." That clip went viral, 17 million views in 24 hours. For a family often accused of aloofness, this was something else entirely. It was real, and people loved them for it. She never wanted the spotlight, but she has rewritten it. Prince William, November 2025. The monarchy may have once been defined by crowns, titles, and royal waves. But as the year drew to a close, another story had taken hold. One of survival, of growth, and of quiet revolution. And at its center stood a woman who never asked for admiration, but earned it. Catherine's legacy was no longer emerging. It was being cemented. And with Diana's memory in the rear view and her own chapter ahead, 2025 had done more than test her. It had transformed her. A legacy in the making. As 2025 came to an end, the royal family looked different. Not in its faces, but in its feel. Gone was the old stiffness, the outdated formalities. In its place stood something raw, relatable. Catherine had reshaped what royalty meant, not through declarations, but through lived experience. She showed that power could come through softness, through leadership that didn't need to shout. In public polls taken that December, 81% of respondents said they saw the monarchy as more caring, more human. Catherine led that shift. She had become the voice of quiet dignity, the face of perseverance, and the symbol of a crown that didn't break. It bent and then stood taller. For William, this legacy was deeply personal. He'd always admired his mother's courage. Now, he watched his wife mirror that same energy, but in her own way. Calm, thoughtful, endlessly strong. One palace aide said, "He sees her as the proof that love can not only survive royal life, but save it." With Catherine's work growing and their family bond stronger than ever, a new kind of royalty was taking shape, one rooted not in spectacle, but in service. Diana had once hoped her sons would lead with heart. Now, through William, and especially Catherine, that dream was no longer just alive. It was reality. He sees her as the proof that love can not only survive royal life, but save it. Palace Aide, December 2025. As the nation rallies around the Princess of Wales, Prince William's emotional honesty has shaken the royal world and changed public perception forever. Behind the titles and traditions, this is a love story tested by fear and strengthened by truth. One thing is certain, the crown may never be the same again. If this touched your heart, share it. And remember, even the strongest carry scars. Will this be the year that redefines royalty as we know it?